Welcome to Rethink, the Financial Advisor Podcast. My name is Adam Holt.
And this is Derek Notman. We are your hosts, both veteran advisors and fintech CEOs who challenge the status quo, question everything, and have fun doing it.
Hear honest commentary on the challenges facing advisors today.
And be part of a community where we can all rethink the profession. Now on to our episode.
Derek, is the tail wagging the dog in the advice business?
All right. What do you mean by that? Because that could have a lot of different.
Well, have you heard of the phrase, the tail is wagging the dog, as opposed to the dog is wagging the tail?
Totally. I've used it a ton with clients. Like, don't let the tax tail wag the investment dog. I've used that one.
Oh, that's a good one. So I'm asking you right now, with all this tech coming in, is the tech wagging the advisor?
You know, there's probably something to that. There's like a FOMO thing going on. There's drinking from a fire hose with all the tech that's coming in and having to learn it.
Yeah.
I think it is to a certain extent. It's forcing change. Just like, when we went from paper apps to digital apps, or when we went from literally going around neighborhoods and knocking on doors to get new business to using a thing called the telephone.
All right. Fax machines to email, like amazing.
That was back in your day, right?
Yes, that's right. The stone chipping, just like your most recent post. Trying to mine coal out of a cave. That's what I did first. That's how I got prospecting. Well, you know what I really mean here is we are seeing so much tech. AI. You've heard this phrase, AI. You remember robo-advice.
Oh, yeah.
All these things are catalysts that get advisors to just jump on board.
They are.
And we're seeing actually this big question of human advice now getting questioned, the relevance at least. And a lot of the interviews we've been doing recently have been about how we got to elevate the human experience. But the question is that what's the shiny object in the room is the tech. And now we're seeing advisors literally with no training, just integrate a whole bunch of apps, probably to their detriment.
Yeah. And then it doesn't work. So they're on to the next one.
Yeah.
Did they spend the time to learn it or teach their team?
Yeah.
Right. Do they all integrate together? I say to your question, yes, to an extent it is, but I think there's a way that we can stop that too. And ultimately the advisor has to get a hold of the tail.
Right. The advisor has to wag the tech as opposed to the tech wagging the advisor. Well, we do joke, and we've said this plenty of times, that if advisors don't get on this new kind of trend of integration in AI and all the other fun stuff that's coming, that they will be beholden to, I think, those that are able to use these advantages. And it's a great intro actually to our good friend, Brian. So help us get to know Brian McLaughlin, the teddy bear of our industry.
The teddy bear of our industry. So Brian McLaughlin, fintech CTO, CEO, board member extraordinaire, and fellow REBL Dad.
Yeah, he is.
He started Redtail Technology, the CRM that has been used by, it's got to be over 130,000 advisors at this point.
Yeah.
And created it into an amazing tool that was actually sold over to Orion. So I think the red tail, I don't know if the tail wagged the dog on that one. I think he was in charge over there, but talk about perspective on integrations and experience and what we can do, and is AI important or not, and so forth. He brings a really great perspective given his journey and how he's touched so many different parts of this industry too.
That's so true. And he's got plenty of years left in the industry. We're wondering what his next splash is going to be, but we did have the opportunity to interview him at Fearless Investor Conference in 2024. And we're just getting now to actually publishing this episode. But we want to introduce our good friend, Brian, because he's got some great perspectives and care for the industry.
Brian McLaughlin. I was the founder of a CRM company, named after a dog. I like to tell that joke,
Yeah.
Who else would have done that, sold the company a couple of years ago to Orion. That was awesome. What a great win. And a great win for me and for the whole team, actually. I stayed working there for about 2.5 years. Helped transition the companies and do a bunch of different projects and initiatives kicked off. And just recently now decided to step down from day-to-day ops, and still a board member of Orion, happy board member over there, and cheering them on and trying to push the mission of strategy and vision for them. But yeah, now I'm nowhere day to day. I'm on week 4, no day to day.
Still trying to figure it out.
So I have no idea.
Right?
Yeah. Everyone's question I get now is, so what's the next thing? I'm like, the next thing is a break. I just got back from a cruise. That was nice, but I haven't been home to like just decompress.
Yeah, right.
After 25 years, and you guys get it as business owners. I mean, 25 years of running so hard and so fast.
Wow.
It's funny, your next idea, what you've been thinking about. I'm like, I haven't. I'm a guy who's like, if I'm in, I'm 1,000% full throttle. Like, I don't think about what's next. I might tinker with stuff, but I didn't really formulate a plan. I'm like, oh, I'm going to stop and do X.
Right.
I'm going to stop and like then figure it out.
Just stop. Yeah. Slow down.
Yeah, slow down.
Yeah.
So, I mean, everybody else in the industry, I'm probably one of the biggest road warriors out there for so many years.
Oh, yeah.
And it's going to be a little weird, but it's going to be kind of fun to just like take a breather.
Very cool. Very cool.
It's cool. It's true. Actually, well, thinking about the opportunity to interview you here at Fearless, there was, I think most people know you as the nicest guy who's always present in the industry, and they want.
Oh yeah.
So they're wondering, is Brian gonna continue to come to events?
Yeah. Or to come to events.
Yes, exactly.
I mean, I'm here. Like I opted to be here. I wanted to be here and hang out. I haven't missed a single Fearless. These are amazing, and of course supporting our friend Aaron and his whole crew and team, and now Dan. I mean, fantastic organization. So people will see me at Schwab. They're going to get a sense for Orion, of course. So I'm excited to still be around. Not disappearing, that's
honorarium here.
Yeah. So I just kind of like floating.
Well, it's your community,
it's
right?
An attendee now. It is.
Yeah.
Like I grew up here.
You grew up, exactly.
I was
that's
24 when I started Redtail. I mean, like my first event actually was an insurance event. MDR.
Oh, okay. No kidding.
That's my first ever conference. I still have the name badge. I have a box of name badges. On back with like a small border. They called the Wall of Honor, right?
Yeah.
And it's just like literally every badge, every event I've gone to for 20 something.
You have all of them.
All of them. I mean, the name tags are off, whatever.
Yeah.
I have the badges, and funny, MDRT back in the day used to give out little stickers, little pins.
Yeah, that's right.
It's really cool.
I
Like get a flair, right? But that was my first ever event. I mean, growing up as like 20-something-year-old kid, like I have no idea what this industry is all about.
Yeah, right.
Why do you guys do it? I'm like, I'm making a CRM. It's online, and like online's a new thing. Like, what are you?
They probably ask like, "What's online?"
What's the meaning of internet?
What?
I don't trust.
Well, I do paper apps, right?
You mean like AOL for CRM?
Yeah.
What's wrong with the paper system? The one card system.
Yes.
Oh my!
Right.
I have those.
broken.
The tickler cards, the box. I have all those.
Yeah.
That is true.
Oh my gosh.
But yeah, this is my crew, right? This is the industry that's rewarded me with amazing things in life. So, I mean, if I can give back, that's going to be phenomenal. Yeah, that's always been my goal, is what can I give back to everybody? Hopefully I give them a good CRM. So yeah, that's pretty awesome.
I think so. Can't go very far without hearing about Redtail.
No.
The name is sticking, right?
It's sticking.
People love dogs. What can I say?
The irony is now you are the mascot of the industry.
Especially like a red dog outfit.
I
Everybody's like,
Halloween.
what's the Clifford hanging out over the corner?
That's too funny. Maybe it should be that. There should be a Redtail dog.
Right?
That would be memorable.
That would be memorable. That'd be really cool.
I mean, there is a Redtail dog. It's my dog, but yes.
Where is he? He should come.
Yeah.
It should be your support.
That's a little nuts, though.
So Brian, you've been in the industry a ton of years. You've served over 100,000 advisors in Redtail. Tell us a little bit about your unique perspective, like from your vantage point. Just tell us something interesting about the industry or some insights that you have.
I think some of the basics, right? The industry is very small, very tight knit community.
Yep.
I only really appreciate that, especially in a startup coming in or something, how tight this crew is.
It's true.
Whether you know somebody or don't, I mean, it's just everybody seems to have like less than 6 degrees of separation, right? And people jump around through the industry, through different organizations, but all achieving a common goal, which is really awesome. Like, how do we service advisors better, serve clients and, humanity better? Like, that's the goal.
Yeah.
And everything we do is in that light. Like, how can we make your business better so you can make their life better? I think that's the perspective I always take here. Like, we can give so much to America, the world at large, through all the things that we learn and do and teach. And it's a community where we talk about like people's future, right? Where we talk about retirement, we talk about longevity, behavioral finance, all these different cool topics. When you think about it, you break it down, it's just about making people have great lives.
Exactly.
Like, that's our
exactly.
Like, it's one of the coolest communities out there. I mean, there's communities that are for cars, electronics, all this type of stuff, and entertainment, but like we're solving real world problems. And I don't think we take that into account a lot of times when we come to the events and just, talk about the next annuity or talk about the next best way to do fee-based planning or something like that. But I loved it yesterday. Bill Simonette said, financial planning is supposed to be fun, right? Financial advice is supposed to be fun. Where's the fun, people? Like, let's start having that again, because we just get so much better when we have a good time.
No, it's very true.
It'd be cool for the clients, like general public, to see how much fun we do have at these things too. Like, wow, these guys are actually really cool.
Yeah, behind the scenes, you don't know that.
You don't, right? You really. So, and you're right. It's a close-knit family, but everyone's trying to improve people's lives.
Yeah, I mean, and it's like there's a competition in this industry. It's like friendly competition.
There's enough business for
like romances everywhere.
Yeah, totally.
It's just mates or whatever they call that. But like, hanging out. I've been going out to like dinners and events after hours with, my other CRM friends.
Yeah, right.
There's a couple CRMs in here that I was competing against, but at the end of the day, you're like, small world. Let's just go hang out.
That's definitely true. I felt
and
that.
we talk about problems. Yeah. We talk about issues in the world. You build these great bonds. And I think that can really push this industry even further at all this great community.
I wonder if other industries are as welcoming. And you're right. That
I don't know.
Purpose of financial services. So. I remember coming in with Asset Map. It was you specifically were incredibly welcoming and made it feel like there was this community.
Yeah.
And it's also something that we've been trying to perpetuate, keep welcoming new parties too. So that pay it forward thing, I think, is kept fintech and financial services really.
Pay forward, great. And I hope that continues really strong. I've been an advocate for that. I mean, when I started Redtail, 3 companies took a chance on me. There's Money Guy Pro, Laser App, and it was Statement One, All British at the time. These companies, they helped get a kickstart going. You had to integrate. You had to tie into things that were these were the standard players. Like Money Guy was around for a lot longer. The Laser App was around a lot earlier, serving IBDs across the board. I mean, huge companies.
Great point.
And they're like, yeah, we'll integrate. And cool. Like, I don't have any money.
Okay.
A little scratch towed back. Okay, still works. You build those great connections. But it's funny, you look at it later on, you go, man, it's a great advantage to all the advisors and the large that companies were talking to each other like that.
Yeah.
I don't know what other industries are like. I'm sure they are. I imagine, but
well, it's interesting because you have this you've been so present for 25 years in the financial services environment. You know the language, you know the people and the players, but you're also on the technology side and have built more integrations, I think, than pretty much anyone. What do you think is the missing challenge that advisors don't see coming that you might be uniquely aware of?
I mean, the big one, the obvious one is AI, right? I mean, I think I've seen things come in different patterns, like cyclical patterns over the career. We were talking last night actually about consolidation. We can get into that if we want, but for here, AI is the next robo-advisor. You hear some fear about things taking out companies, vendors here, like won't survive. Maybe I've heard that a little bit. It's kind of strange to me because I think that actually enhances them. But when robo-advisors started, there's like massive fears in the industry. It's going to change everything. We're going to be the next travel agents, obviously it didn't pan out. What actually happened when you look at retrospect of it is it actually advanced technology of the industry, make it easier. So we eliminated paper forms. We started opening accounts digitally. Everyone had to do it. It kind of made it a must do. And AI is doing the same thing. It's just still a Wild West. So, I mean, what they need to do, you got to lean in. I think I've said it for millions of panels and podcasts and all that, but go learn the tech.
Yeah.
Like, stop like hiding in a shell. Like, go Google it. Just take a quick YouTube course or something. Just understand what it can and can't do. So you have at least a high level concept. When you come into here, you can ask real questions. But I'm seeing the AI explosion happen. I mentioned the consolidation because obviously my company I sold and so you can say that's part of consolidation. And I think it's really cool that this consolidation curve as it goes on to this next journey. We're seeing it happen right now, right? Everybody's buying everybody. So there's less and less players. At the same time, that opens up a flourishing of new startup.
A
lot of new opportunity in this industry. And that's the interesting thing I've realized over the last couple of years, like the cyclical event of like startups just spring up out of nowhere. But I think robo-advisors, do survive. The rest were assimilated.
And they were never really profitable either.
No, they weren't. But they moved the tech forward.
That's it, right? They helped the whole industry get forward in adoption of tech and open the eyes a bit and whatnot.
Yeah. I mean, OpenAI was a big one. Or Open API, sorry.
Yeah.
Huge one. I mean, I've been one of the first to publish an API publicly in the industry. I can remember the presentation. It was literally around that. It was like, okay, I'm literally opening up the doors to everything we do.
But you let everybody build to you.
Yeah.
Create an enormous scale. I mean, bingo.
So that's a two. Like,
We just a closed door system at it. You didn't integrate with pick a vendor, but you didn't just go and integrate with them. It was a big monstrous deal, contracts, and you had to know the right person.
Sure.
Had to do all this hand holding, and I'm sitting there going hey, here's the doc.
Just go do it. Right. Well, we just finished our integration with you guys.
Yeah, right on.
Right. And so it's huge because it brings us a ton of value, but literally it brings Redtail and your whole organization that much more value too.
CRM had to be is the hub, right? CRM with the data set, that's everything, that's everything in, everything out. It's a central repository for it all. So it had to be integrated. I mean, and reducing that friction enabled opportunity.
Yes.
We would pay it forward model, right? I mean, we open it up because anybody, you can be a startup. Literally, I'd never even heard of you. You could build to us and leverage our distribution day one if you wanted to. So there were some really cool opportunities to startups to even get going into business and get distribution. I think Aaron brought it up the other day, or Riskalyze. That was a big thing for them.
It's how you one to many, right? One to many. You got to build it, but then it'll happen. Yeah.
And what did I give my customers? I gave them more choice, more optionality. I gave them more opportunities to see an easier way to do something. I mean, they made the call. They made the choices, not me.
Well, ultimately, it made probably things a lot more sticky too at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Because it's really hard to change management and then rebalance infrastructure.
Exactly.
So we know it's the same reason why a lot of people are installed into their legacy now. And so it's interesting because we think about that also too. We've been really happy. Redtail Orion is actually our number one adopted integration since they merged.
Oh, that's cool.
Interesting that Riskalyze was number one for many years.
Until the
merge happened, then brought Orion and so forth.
And I'm excited for what they're doing with Redtail and Orion right now, right? These are really exciting projects going on. One of the ones that they're doing is this global entity project, which basically unifies all the identifiers of all these acquisitions, like Investnet, Orion, a lot of companies over the years, and different tech stacks, different identifiers or clients, and zoomification. So that you'll have one platform, one identifier for finding Brian McLaughlin anywhere in the system. How many proposals do they have? What are their, what's their phone number? I mean, all of that's intertwined. And then when they get to the next step with opening up through the API, you get one point of contact. You're hey, I want to know everything about Brian McLaughlin in your Orion system. And it's going to be Redtail data, it's going to Orion data, that's planning data.
It's almost like it has a blockchain.
Yeah, they're talking about it. In a way, it looks like a blockchain. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's really cool tech.
Very cool.
So all this talk about tech, if I'm an advisor listening, I'm probably feeling a little bit overwhelmed. I'm drinking from a fire hose. I'm at the event. I'm seeing all of these vendors. What would be an action step or some advice that you would give advisors trying to just figure out where do I go? What do I use?
That's a great question. So, I mean, what we try and tell people for years and still do is you pick your core tech stack.
Yeah.
So if it's planning or it's CRM, whatever it is. And then you're just hubbing around them, right? So you learn your core tech and say, look, this is most essential technology to my business. I have to have this. And a normal small business is maybe or something you have oriented around that or Salesforce. But, hey, this is my one tech thing I have to have. What do they work best with? They're going to talk to the vendor. Hey, I'm looking to do X.
Sure.
Who can you integrate best with?
Sure.
Oh, I work with Redtail really well. We can share data, blah, blah, blah. Okay, cool. I got CRM. Hey, I need to do a better job with marketing. Who now works with these two vendors the best? So instead of asking the question hey, who actually, can you show me what the integration looks like? It's there's a million, everybody says integration.
Yeah,
but a lot of them are single sign on one click.
Yeah.
Hey, that's really helping much. I can leave 2 tabs open.
Yeah, right.
It's not the end of the world. But when you start getting into partnership companies that work really seamlessly, where it's hey, I updated a name here and it updated here seamlessly. I didn't do anything, or it notified me about an opportunity because of the data in another system. These are really cool, powerful integrations that can change the scale of your business real fast. So
as an advisor doing a demo,
it's overwhelming. You're right. You walk in that hall.
It's probably oh my gosh, forget it. Yeah, you're what do I?
Hey, there's 50 vendors.
Oh,
I do. And 10 of them look the same.
Yeah,
it's true.
But I like that.
I feel like you need an anchor.
If you're you have the anchor. Then when you're looking for the demos or ask those specific questions, how do you integrate? Show me, how does this help me instead of just looking at the demo and decide if I have to buy or, right then or there or not.
Correct. And then a lot of people buy in the moment here, oh my God, it's all made. Go probably think about it first.
and see if it actually integrates. Does it do what you want it to do?
Yeah. Talk to staff about it. Like, hey, what do you think about this? Like, that's the other thing actually thinking about that is like staff buy-in. Even at Orion, I changed a lot of technology when I was there for a couple of years. So a couple different internal software stuff, like here or whatever. It's you got to get that staff adoption because they're the ones that actually use it. So the advisor walking around here, they have 3 or 4 staff members. That person's not the one using it. Or
Good point.
they're the buyer, but they're
not the user.
the one who got to actually be sold is the staff.
Yep.
Why we see such tough things on adoption. Advisors are not spending the same amount of money on licensing as they would on training, right? So Redtail always did amazing training.
Yeah.
And brought in thousands of people, in fact, paraplanners, assistants to come and learn the tool. So there was the adoption.
Yeah. I was at Redtail University a couple of days ago, and that's been going on for over a decade. And it's an education program. And, you know, I told another vendor here, like, you know, one of our, I think our successes was selling through education, teaching, not pitching. Right.
Yep.
And it's like, let me show you how this stuff works. Let me show you what you could do. You may not, but you know, let me show you what the potentials are.
Possibilities.
And really kind of gets the brain going for them. Like, oh, well, if I can do this.
Yeah, that's super cool. Yeah.
And people build businesses off of that.
Yeah.
Like, let me show you better ways to use the tool that you bought. And I'm like, whoa, okay. I thought we knew everything about our own tool. They're like coming up with these cool, creative, like, you know, abstract ideas on how to do stuff that I never thought of.
This is certainly not the last time you'll be interviewed in fintech, of course, you know, despite your quote unquote retirement. I'm sure there's lots of going forward, but is there anything that you see for the future or want to drop in there? Controversy welcomed, anything that
I do like a good controversy.
I know that's what you're going to say.
Okay. Well, what I'm going to say, I thought about this a little bit, was, I spoke about this summer actually at an event. What I think this industry fails at fails at serving the average American, the average person. I've told the story 100 times, but you know, I was raised by a single mom. We grew up, you know, very limited means in Los Angeles. And, yeah, I think her top gross earnings was probably $60K a year, you know, when I was an adult at that time, you know. And she had no access to this environment. Like, no access to budgeting, planning, just basics.
Yeah, right.
I mean, put us into a 60-40 all the day. Start making some money. Yeah. It's like whatever the employer did is what she had access to. That was it. And I wish that we could get this industry into a position where it was profitable for their business to go and service the people literally outside of hotel on the street. Yeah. You know, the valet. Like,
yeah, right.
These are people. Like, you know, I was talking to a friend over at BYU last week. He does wellness coaching for players. Because, you know, you realize 95% of college players, athletes, don't make it to the NFL or NBA or whatever. And they need to have planning, you know, education on how to be ready for life after this. And like, you're not going to be a superstar making $30 million, you know?
No, chances are not.
Chances are low. Yeah. And good for you if you do. But how do we get this where I hear all the time, I've heard for 20 plus years, it's $100,000 liquid assets or $250,000 liquid assets to work with you. Yeah, cool. I appreciate that. You're running a business, but like, you know, I think that was more than the price of the home I lived in when I grew up. And the assets were the house.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That's it.
These people need help. These people seriously need, and if we're not careful, and we're seeing it already with M1 or Robinhood or Acorns, name it, that, you know, like our very Vanguard was doing it through digital asset gathering, saying, hey, we're going to go and tap into the market through a mobile app, and people are doing that. Yeah. But we're the experts. Right. Yeah. We're the ones that come up with all the software, all the education, all the training. Sure. Like, we are the experts on how to be financially successful in your life and have wellness. And then just scale that down into a system. One, it's going to feel great for everybody. Yeah. But then how do you make that a business model? And I think this is something we can solve. That's true. Very similar.
Well, that was a really fun chat with Brian, and we've been friends with him for years. Really cool to see his journey. We've spent time on Necker Island with him twice now for the REBL Dads event. Yeah. Just a super cool dude, and really neat to see and hear his perspective given, I mean, he's had a heck of a ride the last 25 years with Redtail.
Yeah. He did it in a very humble way too, by the way.
He really did.
Solved problems, spent time with people, just did it. You know, he's a real quick start. I mean, we think about ourselves in the Colby.
Yeah,
he just has an idea. He goes and does it. He's like, I built it last night. You know, he's not, you know, we think of these CEOs running major companies. he's, he was a CTO first. He just solved the problem back when he was in his 20s, the CRM side. Look how big they got, 130,000 last count I heard advisors using his technology. And of course,
I think it's more now. I think it's actually more.
I'm sure it's way more.
It's so cool. And he bootstrapped the heck out of that thing. I mean, what a great story and great example of what's possible.
Couple hundred employees, I think, at one point, and multiple locations around the country. And I think if there was anything that was interesting about looking back at Redtail and its successes, especially as somebody in the fintech world, as you know, it was the people. The people were just really great. I model a lot after what Brian built because I want people to love working at the company, and I know that they're passionate about it. That came through as a customer for sure.
No question about it. It's funny because we talk about REBL Dads and Necker, and Richard Branson, part of his success he attributes is like, treat your employees well, and the rest kind of takes care of itself. And Brian's just a great example of look what happens. When you're building something like that and people want to be part of it, that's awesome.
All right. So let's talk about what we talked about. This was a very interesting, interview because Brian has just left the industry to a degree, right? He's taken a little hiatus after 25 years. What did he say here that advisors need to start thinking about?
Well, we'll preface it. He makes it very clear that advisors and fintech, our industry in general, we're a special group, and that we really do have the opportunity to improve people's lives. We're not just selling a cell phone or a hamburger. Like we are helping people with decisions that will impact their legacy, like really deep, meaningful things. So I really like that because that shows at the core of like how he's thinking about all of us and what we should be doing. I like how he said our community, even behind the scenes, it's pretty welcoming. It's small. It's a small community. It really is, but it's pretty welcoming. And I like that. There's a lot of friendly competition out there. I mean, I've even had competition approach me like, hey, what are you doing? Maybe we should work together. I don't know. What do you think? It's kind of fun.
It is. Maybe it's because the fintech community or wealth tech community in the United States is so small. I mean, yes, there's something like 300,000 to 1 million advisors, depending upon how you want to count, who you want to include.
Yeah.
But, it just boils down to several broker dealers, a bunch of wirehouses and some insurance companies. Yeah, sure. There's plenty of names out there, but the bottom line is that we all basically do the same thing, right? We have the same kind of experience. We have the same needs. We need fact finding. We need CRM. We need portfolio management and a whole bunch of other stuff that supports the process of advice. But it's really amazing how we all know each other. When I joined in the community, I guess back in 2016, 17, I was so surprised how welcoming everybody was. And if you're willing to play out and be out loud a little bit and show up, you can build great relationships. It's been really the hallmark of my excitement about being a fintech CEO versus an advisor. Because, gosh,
for sure,
community, unlike it everywhere. That's how you and I met.
That's how we met. Yeah, for sure. So clearly, it works, and it's really cool. And I think lean into that. He mentioned that too. Like lean into the community and lean on it as much as you can. I also liked how he was talking about a challenge. So there's all this talk about AI. But he made it. He's like, it's the next robo-advisor, which is interesting because robo-advisors were a flash in the pan. They were going to replace advisors. They didn't, but robo-advisors are still around and have gained some market share.
Yeah.
And I think I think he's right there, right? I think AI is a big flash in the pan now, probably bigger than robo-advisors because it touches more parts of our lives. But it's not going to replace humans. Just can't.
It's not. But let me challenge you on that, because I think what I heard in this rethink discussion is that robo advice was the catalyst for all of us to retool and retool fast, so that robo didn't have a competitive advantage over humans, right? So most of the modern companies either bought the technology that robo was providing or built it themselves and renovated, right? They went paperless. They went to dashboards and client portals.
Yeah.
So they basically obviated the technical advantage that robo came out with at a low cost, right? But didn't have the context of a human. And then the robo started adding humans, and it kind of fizzled out for the most part because it's a relationship business.
All day long.
But AI is, I think it's interesting because you're right. It's forcing everybody to wake up Is it going to force financial advisors to change much? I think it will wind up changing the back office. You and I have done a bunch of work in AI, and we have gotten enormous leverage from it.
Oh my gosh, tremendous leverage. And so what are we doing with that extra time?
Yeah, we get time back.
It's more human interaction.
If you choose to use that time for human engagement.
Well,
right?
I suppose. And so if you're an advisor and you're looking at this from a business perspective, yes, you can apply this to calling more clients, meeting with more clients, all of that. At the end of the day, that's what we're paid to do. I'm not paid to file your stuff. I'm not paid to update Redtail, as much as, I use Redtail, but I have staff that helps me with that, as an advisor, this is where my time is spent. So if AI is helping me do that, but I think, right, you could play more golf.
You could deliver more value. Maybe golf is your highest revenue producing work.
Could be.
I know for some advisors, it certainly is. But
it works. It works for some of them. Yeah. We've talked about this before too, though, is it's the advisors that are not going to use AI. The firms, the broker dealers, the life insurance companies who are worried about it or putting their heads in the sand about it.
Yeah.
That's how you go obsolete.
I had a friend come into one of the conferences I was doing, Panos Laladakis. He's pretty much known globally as a crazy person. I think we might actually have him on the podcast. We planned on having
That'd be fun.
He's too ADD to focus on anything. He literally runs around, and he showed on stage as a handheld drone, followed him around the stage, showing advisors what they could do, from making AI avatars that literally had full responsiveness trained with his voice and his face. It was like him speaking on screen. And he showed advisors what AI can do today and asked the question, what is it going to look like in a year? And Brian's been a real student of this stuff, especially because he has his extra time on his hands now. He showed us a bunch of stuff when we saw him in Necker that has gotten him all fired up. So I really don't even think that the mass population has any clue, because they're busy doing their job and they're making money.
Of course.
What these AI tools can do already, and how that could cause a massive disintermediation, at least in status quo. It may not be taking business away from humans, but something in the value chain is going to get innovated. And the question is it processing? Is it portfolio rebalancing? And either way, it's probably going to force margin compression. And if that's the case, and we need to lower our prices, are we prepared to do that? I think that's going to be the disruption.
I agree with you on that. I would say, though, that it is taking business away from humans. In that it's taking business away from humans, from a certain group of humans, and giving it to another group.
Okay.
It's a transfer of wealth from one group of advisors to another group of advisors, from those using it to those who aren't using it to those who are.
Yeah.
So you have that going on, and then you've got the fee compression. But even Kitsis, I think, came out with something in the last couple of months. There's all this talk of fee compression, but it doesn't seem to be happening.
Right.
But that's so true. Maybe it's not fee compression. Maybe it's expansion of services to justify said fee.
That's probably where it plays out. I agree with you, right? Can you expand this conversation from investment management to estate planning? Or can we start talking about tax structure, or maybe working with your company? And I agree with you. I think we're going to deliver more for less price.
Well, here's a good example.
Same price. Yeah.
Here's a good example. So wealth.com, they're doing really interesting estate planning solution, technology driven for advisors. And I just did a deep dive with them. Like Tim was on Necker with us as well, right?
Yeah.
They've really figured it out now, where I can now be a more comprehensive advisor. I can go offer all of my clients estate planning packages. I don't have to touch it. I'm not the attorney. And I can actually make that into another revenue line for my business. So now the clients are stickier. They're getting more service. I'm actually making more instead of less. It's a really interesting model, but it shows clearly how, if you use the technology correctly, you can deepen relationships, make more money. You're going to get that business versus, if I'm a practicing attorney and I see this, I'm starting to freak out, or if I'm even as an advisor, I'm looking at this RIA's website and they offer estate planning services. It's all turnkey. Whoa, I don't do that.
Yeah. But you know what's interesting, even about that marketplace, like you think about the estate attorneys, they're really so few and far between. Most large firms have one or two people in their entire partnership that's focused on T&E, right? That's trust and estates. And the reason is because despite the fact the market is massive, the actual demand for that work is so low. And the reason it's so low is because it's expensive and it's complicated. And this is a classic industry that's ripe for disruption. And advisors, tend to not touch this one with a long pole because you can't ever solve it. You don't practice law. I think it's a really interesting way that fee-based advisors must, I'm not saying should, must be able to provide an outlet like this. And there's several companies that are doing it, not just wealth.com, but the key is you got to provide an off-ramp for people to do this work and do it cheaply. This should be a commodity. And the fact that nobody has it, or something like 60% of the population doesn't even have a will, is
it's crazy, right?
Opportunity.
And you might be saying, well, why do I have to do this? Who's telling me I have to do this? At the end of the day, the consumer is driving this now more than anybody else.
That's true.
The consumer has expectations. They want convenience. They want hyper-personalization. They want digitally enhanced.
Mm-hmm.
They will go wherever they can get that. So if you don't have that, they will go find someone else that does.
Yeah. There's another thing that Brian said that I wasn't thinking about or expecting to hear. When he mentioned something about the unified ID, this is something that I wasn't really thinking about, because in the States, we have a social security number. A unified ID is for the EU, or United Arab Emirates has, basically everyone has a number, a distinct number that unifies your data across multiple platforms. And obviously there's lots of, we'll call them state systems within the EU that need to talk to each other. They don't have the same social security number, so they have a UID. So this is interesting that he's contemplating this, because one of the bigger challenges that we have, certainly across households and different registrations, and my first name is not Adam, right? It's Heath, right? Or it's I'm by H Adam. And then in a CRM system, as an example, there could be 6 records.
It gets messed up. Yeah.
And the data, it gets all messy. Now you got to integrate that data, send it someplace, and everybody's complaining. Like, householding has been such a hard thing to do. We clearly do it in Asset Map. It's like what our thing is, but that's because we're asking the advisor, like, what's the, we're starting from scratch.
Maybe we should get an Asset Map universal ID and roll it out nationally.
We do have this though. That's the thing. And it's not only numbers. If you integrate with Asset Map, you have to use our UID, right, to integrate with us. And that's a household and member level registrant, kind of like a blockchain, like he said.
That's pretty cool.
Nobody knows that behind the scenes, except now. I guess I
think you need to sell that separately.
We just give it away. Well, certainly you want to give it away, because now you're embedded in the entire ecosystem of that data forever, right? So think about downstream data. If we've seen a lot of kind of change here, a lot advisors don't even think about this. So let me kind of give you some insight. There's data protection agreements between a lot of these companies. What does that mean? It means that if I take data, let's say from Schwab, right? I pull in the data from Schwab because the advisor says, I want my data. Okay, let's say an Asset Map or some other tool. If now I take that data from Asset Map and send it to, let's say, Precise FP, because you want to move it to eMoney, sure, I have to hold the downstream data recipient accountable to a data protection agreement on behalf of Schwab. Because Schwab's data came to me. I sent it off with authorization to Precise because they wanted it, and then they sent it to eMoney. That chain has to be able to be turned off through a sieve today. That is really difficult to do, and things that Brian didn't have to deal with in the same way with Redtail. It's like, oh, you have a login? I give you the data. Here's my API. Today, we're seeing that people want to protect the data from leaving their vendor.
Yeah, right.
You can't take my data to my competitor. So it's interesting to see how these unified IDs are actually going to become more prolific, because we need to make sure, where is this data coming from? And most of us advisors are like, I just want to integrate the data. Can you just give me the data?
Yeah, just let me integrate.
These are problems that I think a lot of people don't even realize.
Well, speaking of integrations, I think Brian had some good comments about that as well. If we want to kind of jump into what can you actually do? Like, if you're listening today, like, all right, I've heard enough of what Derek and Adam have to say. They can stop jaw jacking.
Is that what we do? Jaw jacking? Yeah. Never heard that one.
I want to know what to actually do now. So we'll go straight to the integration thing. But I like that, is that Brian was saying, like, what's your core tech? What do you use most of all? It's probably CRM, or maybe it's like a financial planning asset map type tool. All right. Now, what do you need to do in addition to that? Okay. All right. I want CRM. What do you want your CRM to do? Okay. Well, who does that? And do they integrate really well with this other core tool I'm doing? Now you've built two. Now you go to the third one. All right. I have these two doing this. I need this third thing. Who integrates really, really well with both of these?
Yeah.
It's a bit of a process. I think this is why also your tech stack should be less versus more, because it can get very slippery. Also kind of expensive once you add up all these different things. So I really like that he was talking about that. Make sure there's a seamless integration. It works well. You keep it simple.
Yeah, well, clearly I agree with that. I did find though, I built a pretty successful practice with virtually no integration. So I do feel in some way that people have gotten integration like giddy and they don't want to rekey any data. And I get that, but there's an element also, and here's my pathetic excuse of why not to integrate, is that we're definitely seeing a bunch of bad data get in front of clients every once in a while because no one actually cares to inspect anymore. They just assume it's right. And so that's why I think over integrating in the current state of the world without a human saying, hey, I double checked that number, runs the risk of actually, perpetuating a scaled problem, which is I walk in front of a meeting and I just assumed that the, e-money aggregation was right. And it turns out it wasn't updated for 2 years. And now the client's like, that's wrong. What are you talking about? Why do you think you're so, what's going on? I'm like, well, downstream, I relied on that data for 5 different systems. And it's wrong. And I didn't check because I rely on the thing to work.
Well, and it makes it look like a fool. You're in a client meeting. The client doesn't remember that the tech wasn't working. The client remembers like, man, Adam wasn't prepared.
That's right. That's right. But hey, look, I saved all this time by just hitting the easy button. So I understand the design.
And then you lose the client.
Right. I lose face. I lose credibility. And in this world where tech is so fungible, I just don't think we can be. We have to, I don't want to say we have to be infallible, but we have to be thoughtful and we have to show that we're actually paying attention to the store, not just like, hey, yeah, the camera didn't show anything, so I guess we didn't lose any product this month, but somehow there's like apples missing.
Yeah, right.
Part. Well, you're in charge, man. What's the deal? So I think that's,
that goes back to an old saying I learned at my first job out of college.
What's that?
Inspect what you expect.
That's right. That's right. My mom says it this way. She said, people don't do what you expect. They do what you inspect. How about that?
That's good.
Yeah. She went to the same school as you.
She sure did.
Yeah. She went to high school.
I got a GED.
Nice. Great. Awesome.
Awesome.
No, that's great. Listen, I'm really proud of you. I knew there was something there. They were right. You left that out of every interview I've done with you. Amazing. You know what I thought was cool? That Brian did a fantastic job at Redtail of really focusing on educational selling. Yeah. I don't know if you noticed this, but he had like no marketing budget all those years. He focused on integration. I'll work with you and what you're doing. And then he focused on education. Let me educate the staff, because he realized that was the key to adoption of CRM. It wasn't the advisor. The staff is doing 90% of the work.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I run into this all the time, Derek, which is advisors just expect to spend their SaaS fee to buy a tech, and it's just going to work like Facebook, or it's going to work like some consumer app. And this is a technical app trying to make your business look better. An enterprise app is not designed like Facebook. It's designed to do something really technical. And so they don't spend the money on training. It's such a waste. So enterprises typically spend 2 to 3 times the licensing fees on training alone and implementation, so they get the ROI. And I think that's where advisors missed that boat. And Brian did it so naturally that
it's almost like he was selling a subscription to university classes, right? Like the first year you were with Redtail, you didn't pay for technology, you paid tuition.
Yeah, you paid for education.
You got your education, and then it switched over to tech eventually.
Well, if you're educated, you're empowered. And if you're empowered, now you're actually dangerous. And that's now you can actually add and contribute value to the business, right? Yeah. If you're not really empowered, it's just it's another toy, right? I use it once in a blue moon. I don't really know it. I use 10% of it. I mean, financial planning gets this rap all the time, Derek.
All the time.
Well, I use it like for retirement burned out. Did you use it for the Roth conversion? No. Did you show the family? No. Wait, you can do that? Yes. You should have learned what you're paying for.
So okay, here's an action item. If you're listening to this and you're considering getting rid of a piece of tech, push pause, go learn the tech. You and your team go learn the tech. That's even what Brian was saying, like any tech, even or like new ideas, AI, go learn about it. Like just hit pause, skip the 9 holes of golf today and spend an hour or 2 on learning the tech instead. It's one-time investment.
That's true.
And then you'll actually know if it's worth it or not.
You know, with everything on YouTube today, like there's no excuse, right?
There's no excuse.
On-demand learning. We even have an LMS system, learning management system. You can like learn the whole thing at night in the middle of the weekend. Like, no, you don't need a human anymore. You can go at your own pace. So there's no excuse to learning. And granted, I happen to think any advisor who's got a business that's generating $250,000 or more, they should have a budget that's reinvesting back in their own company and their knowledge. Otherwise, why are you managing my money? You're not growing yourself. You're not bringing more value. Like, come on, be more efficient. It's ridiculous how many times advisors are like, yeah, just kind of like collect them fees. And it's good enough. And they all have an accent, obviously, because that attitude must have
an
accent.
Are they all from Philly? Are they all in Philly?
Did I sound like a Philly guy? What? They all got their fees. That's the Southern accent.
So South Philly.
That's right. Southern Philly. Yo. Yeah, that's right.
Oh, man.
I sound like I'm from Philly. Anyway, that's great. Well, that's what's the wrap up here? I think this is really awesome to spend time with Brian. Just a great guy. And I believe, Derek, I've said this before, he is the mascot of the fintech industry. He is the red tail. You know,
and that's his dog, the dog he had when he started, right? So there's actual real meaning behind that.
That's true. We've been lucky to call him a friend.
Very lucky
of what we do. And it was ironic that we ran into him there at Fearless and had the opportunity to interview him. So I always appreciate what he's doing.
Well, thanks for listening. Hopefully you got a couple takeaways or at least a laugh. If you're laughing at us, with us, I don't really care as long as you're laughing. That's good. Yeah. And until next time, take it easy. Keep making progress. And we'll see you later.
Absolutely. Thanks, my friend. I'll see you in the next one.
Thank you for listening to Rethink, the Financial Advisor Podcast with Holt and Notman. Be sure to subscribe now and join the ongoing conversation. The information covered and posted represents the views and opinions of the guest and does not necessarily represent the views or opinions of Asset Map or Connector. The content has been made available for informational and educational purposes only.